Welcome to episode 2 of the still unnamed SPA podcast. We've had some quite cool title suggestions. From Call for Archives, we had Spa Treatment from the SPA, Steve Parker Audiobooks Spa, yeah. And we also had Podcast 101, reference 1984, and A Brave New Podcast from Guru Ruru Wararara, which is quite a name.
Nice.
It's quite a name. And I quite like both of those. Keep your suggestions coming in. I like them, and I think we could all use a chuckle. Yes. Now, I'm here with my lovely wife, Alice.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, that's you.
Okay, well, said my name weird, that's all. I like Podcast 101, although it does kind of sound like we're going to be giving you a lecture about how to make a podcast.
Right.
But we are definitely not qualified to do that, so maybe...
Well, you're not. I had a podcast for years back in the day, and it was listened to by up to 2 people at a time.
Like I said, we're not qualified to teach anyone how to make a podcast.
I can teach you how to make a podcast, just not a good or popular podcast.
I like Brave New Podcast as well. I thought that one wasn't bad. So I tried to think of some of my own. All I could come up with was The Great Chatsby. Perhaps.
I like it. It's good. I don't think book-specific titles are good, but I do like a good pun anyway, so that's fine.
Yeah, that wasn't really a good pun, but...
I liked it. The Great Chatsby, that's a good one. I think it's good.
I think we continue as unnamed for now. We'll find the perfect name.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Send in your suggestions, please.
Yes. So coming up, we'll have a chat about some more audiobook-related content, what we're reading, what's coming up on the channel, and I'm going to run through a few questions that we've had from listeners on YouTube and Patreon. And at the end, of course, as usual, we're going to feature a YouTube audiobook channel.
Other than Steve.
Yes, who has caught our attention for some reason. Plus, this week we have a special celebrity guest who has recorded a little something for us to listen to later in the show. How exciting.
Cool.
I'm very excited. I'm very excited
too.
I don't get, like, celebrity things at all. Who's interested in what I do? No one, right? Yeah. But also, last episode, the first episode, we spoke about how Simon Vance is my comfort reader, right? When I just want to chill or go to sleep, I'll listen to him doing the old Roman murder mysteries, and I like them. They're good. Well, I have learned that I am someone's comfort reader. How about that?
Oh.
Karen B5985, catchy title there, catchy name. Said that she listens to the Isle of Dr. Moreau every night. My mellifluous tones discussing being marooned on an island and vivisection of live animals and other such soothing topics to help lull you off to sleep.
That is a bit of a strange choice for a sleepy time story, but
I've heard some people go to sleep with 1984, man.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just hope you don't wake up to the screaming rats, that's all.
We could call the podcast the podcast of Dr. Steve. We would need to add a disclaimer that you're not actually a doctor.
Not actually a doctor. No. Are you suggesting that I'm committing audio vivisection on the ears and brains of my listeners?
I wasn't, but now that you mention it...
It would explain the screaming. Yeah. Anyway, all right. So let's move on to our first section for this podcast, which is our favourite readers. Would you like to go first?
Okay.
Yes.
And this week I've chosen a classic, the OG, the GOAT, as the kids say these days. I think George Goodall.
Right.
I think that's the correct... Goodell?
I have
I'm
no
not
idea.
100% sure. Apologies for butchering your name, George.
I'm sure he's listening and cares a great deal.
He's not. He's got better things to do, like make more audiobooks.
Yeah.
I mean, the internet says he's recorded anywhere between 1,200 and 2,000
Holy
audiobooks.
crap. I don't think I've even done 12.
Well, apparently he can record a book in like 3 days. I mean, obviously, it depends on the length of the book.
Does he do his own production and everything, or is
I
that
would
just
assume
recording?
not. I would assume not.
I mean, he can't be, right?
No, he'd just be sitting there reading a book for 3 days straight.
Yeah. I mean, that's what slows me down, all the editing and post-processing and sound effects and stuff.
Yeah.
So. Wow.
But apparently he does his research. He likes to, read the book fully before beginning narration to get an understanding of the characters and the emotional content and what it's all about. He comes from an acting background as well.
Right. Good.
I think that's pretty common in a lot of the narrators that we like, that they come from an acting background, because it really kind of shows
you
through
need the skills,
in
right?
their... Yeah, like it's a crossover in the skill set. To be a good narrator, you've got to have some acting chops, whether that's...
especially if you're differentiating between the characters, But
yeah, I think the first book I heard by George Guidall was American Gods.
What?
And then, but the most memorable one for me was Baudolino by Umberto Eco.
I don't know that book or that author.
You do know that author. You
Really?
know In the Name of the Rose? Well, maybe
Oh,
you know
yes.
the movie.
Yes.
I know
I know the book and the movie, absolutely.
Yes, he wrote that as well.
Oh, very good book.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I would recommend Baudolino too, actually. It's a historical era that you have an interest in, but it also dips into like the mythical creatures and adventures of that time, 12th century.
Right, yeah, definitely.
Sort of...
Well, for the listeners who don't know...
Constantinople, I think, was like sort of where
right.
the sort of main part of the story was
Istanbul?
set.
No, Constantinople. No, it's Istanbul. No, Constantinople. It's been a long time gone, it's Constantinople.
Why they changed it? I can't say.
People just like it better that way, Alice. They just like it better that way.
But he... Anyway.
Yeah, sorry.
He also narrated the Dark Tower books, which I've been mentioned last time that I'd been dipping into again. But yeah, he reads with like this real sort of intensity and focus, and that's really good for kind of immersing yourself in the story and keeping you, really,
nice,
building the world around you. Yeah,
excellent.
No, yeah, so it's kind of a classic choice for me this week. But yeah, I think everyone's heard something by this guy. Even if you don't know it, when you hear his voice, you'll be like, yeah, I know this guy.
Yeah, I know that guy. yeah, right. Yeah. Wow, 2,000 books. That's intense.
Yeah.
Amazing. Gosh. Like, I was amazed with that upcoming celebrity guest. He's got over 400 books on Audible, and that was like, wow, 400 books, but 2,000. Good Lord.
Yeah, he's been doing it a long
Does he
time.
do anything else?
These days,
like
I don't.
breathe, walk? He'd have no time.
Just walks around with a book in hand and microphone constantly.
Yeah, that's it. Just brushing my teeth and reading another audiobook.
The world is black. From the gunfire.
The Blackstone Audio presents. Yeah. No, I don't know who he works for. Anyway. So, speaking of which, the 400 book reader, this month I'm featuring Ray Porter, who is consistently recognised as one of the greats. I actually only learned after working this out that he actually did the voice for one of the bad guys in a Marvel film, even. Like, he does other voice actor work as well.
Yeah.
I thought he was just an audiobook guy. But anyway, I first heard him reading Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I'm sure most people have heard that. If you haven't, go and do it now. It's amazing. Just an amazing book. And his performance in it just completely blew me away. I was actually trying to listen to it to help me get to sleep at the time, but the performance and the content was so absolutely amazing. I just ended up staying up later and later every night trying to, take it all in.
Book.
Yeah, it didn't work, so I had to switch over to something else. Read by Simon Vance to help lull me off to sleep, Porter is absolutely great at finding, not just the character points that we were talking about with your fellow earlier, but also like the comedic beats in the books he's really good at without like overplaying them, like some hammy, bald potato-headed actors who may be sitting in this room might do from time to time.
Yeah.
I just really like to ham it up. Wait till you hear the drunk guy in The Great Gatsby. Oh my God, I played that, like 11 is not enough. I think I played that at a 17. And really over the top, but I enjoyed it too much, so there you go. Yeah.
I think that particular book, Project Hail Mary, and the author, I've read a couple of books by Andy Weir, and he does have that sort of comedic bent to his writing style. I think this is an example of where narrator and author kind of come together
Sync up
perfectly.
beautifully. That's it.
That audiobook version kind of has something extra because of that combo, I think.
Agreed. On that point, Andy Weir also wrote The Martian, which they made the Matt Damon film out of, that has quite a few little funny moments in it. But the audiobook is read by Will Wheaton, who is not terrible at reading audiobooks at all. I quite enjoy his work. Played Wesley Crusher on Star Trek, so I hated him for years because we were the same age and he was such a nerdy little dweeb. But the actual guy turned out to be super cool, so, you know. But the whole time I was listening to Wheaton read The Martian, I was wishing it was Ray Porter, you know. So, yeah. Anyway, he's back to Porter. He's extremely experienced as a voice actor outside of audiobooks too, playing Darkseid. That's it, in the superhero movies, which I don't really watch. I watched the early ones. They were very, very cool. I loved Superman back in the day. And the early Batman stuff was cool. But with just the flood of superhero movies recently, I've sort of lost interest. There's just too many of them.
Yeah.
For his audiobooks, Porter's audiobooks, even just on Audible, there are almost 450 books read by him. Wow. So, yeah, I have a bit of catching up to do.
You do.
There. I'm not sure how many I've done, but I think it's less than 10. if just full novels. You know, if you include the shorter stuff, maybe I've done 12, maybe even 15. But yeah, it's certainly not over 400 or 2,000 as your fellow had done. Oh my God. Now, I actually reached out to Mr. Porter and he agreed to record a little something for us, which is very, very exciting.
That is exciting.
I'm amazed. I mean, I was inspired because I used to do a great radio show that was written every week, and the guy who wrote it and directed it, produced it, always got these super cool, like, celebrity cameos of people just reading out stings for the show and stuff. I was like, how do you do that? And he was just like, you just reach out, you ask, and sometimes they say yes. And Ray Porter said yes. So let's have a listen to that now, shall we?
Okay, so about me. I started narrating audiobooks right after I'd sort of finished up working at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival after a number of years, running around swinging steel, speaking verse, and decided to look into audiobooks for a variety of reasons. One, I mean, I had done a fair amount of voice work in addition to on-camera, TV and film, that kind of thing, but audiobooks seemed an interesting challenge, and boy howdy was it. I was given one book to do by Blackstone Publishing, and it seemed to do pretty well, so they gave me a few more, and then it just kind of snowballed after that. Why I do what I do, I've always been a huge reader. I've always been a voracious reader, and I've also always had a major appreciation for text. When I was doing Shakespeare, the most important thing to me was simply delivering the text, bringing the story that Shakespeare wrote to the audience. In essence, delivering the mail, like Shakespeare wrote a letter to that audience member. And I kind of feel the same way about books. You know, the author has written you a letter. Now, if I'm delivering your mail, I try my best to deliver it as cleanly and efficiently as I can without gumming up the works and trying to really kind of be unnoticed, basically. Just tell the story. Pretty basic stuff, really. But that is a challenge, and I think that's part of the reason why I continue to do it. An added benefit is most of the time I get to record from home, which during COVID was amazing. And I get to meet all kinds of really interesting and incredible people and marvel in the talents of my fellow narrators, which is a privilege. I'm still kind of astonished that they let me attend events and continue narrating books, and I'm immensely grateful for it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's basically what's up. I'd love to say a special hello to your audience. Thank you for having me on this. And I don't know how many of your audience are in Oz. I envy you. I'd really like to come visit sometime. Got to get around to doing that. But first, I got some books to get out of the way. So anyway, thank you so much for asking me to do this. I wish you all the best with your show and with your upcoming books. And maybe see you around, I don't know, water cooler? No, we don't have water coolers. We're audiobook narrators. We work alone. We're shut-ins. Okay, so I'm not going to see you. But I look forward to hearing you. All right, be well. And once again, thanks for having me on the show, and all the best to your audience.
So there you go. Thank you, Ray Porter, for recording that for us. I'm very excited. That was so cool. So cool.
That was really good to hear from, your professional person, someone who's been who's been doing this as a profession for a long time.
That's right.
And it was cool for me to hear sort of his motivation doing it, how he was talking about, for him, it's about delivering the text. Just reminded me of like how your audiobooks sort of are doing the same thing in a slightly different way. You get a lot of comments and feedback from people saying the way you've produced your audiobook has helped me so much to better understand this text. I couldn't sit there and read this book on my own for whatever reason, but your audiobook now, I've been able to experience and understand 1984 or Brave New World or whatever the book is. And without that, they would never have got to experience this great bit of literature.
That's it.
And you've done, and he's doing that in his way. You're doing that in your way, and we're all
it's
reading
just
books.
a philosophical
Happy.
difference, I think. Well, that's it, right? The more people that get books, the better. Books is good. Reading is good. If you read via the page or via me or via Ray Porter, I don't really care. Books are good. But yeah, it's definitely a philosophical difference. We had the same thing in episode 1 from the featured YouTube channel narrator of that time, who was saying much the same thing. He tries to just get out of the way of the story and just deliver it straight. Whereas for me, it's really trying to squeeze out every bit of nuance out of every word, every line, to make it as absolutely clearly understandable as possible. Now, of course, that does mean you're understanding my understanding of the text, of course, but I like to think I bring a fairly neutral perspective to that. I'm not trying to lean heavily onto some political wing or philosophical ideology or anything like that. I'm just trying to deliver the text as hard as I can, to make it as clear and open for everybody as they possibly can. I can remember being like 12 or 13, I was probably a bit older than that. I'm terrible at ages and time. Just ask my wife, she will tell you. I'm awful at these things. But I was very young, certainly a teenager, when I first read Shakespeare, and it was just so dry and hard to read, hard to get through. And not just the prose and the language, I actually found that relatively easy for some reason. I don't know why, I just did. But the actual script, the actual stories and characters, so dry, so difficult. And it wasn't until years later that I managed to pick it up. And I really think that's part of what affected my goal to try and make everything I read as easily understood as possible. Yeah. So that's, it's a difference. It's not, right or wrong. It's just a different angle at which I attack things. So thank you again, Mr. Porter. I heartily recommend that you listen to, probably virtually everything he's ever done is quite good. He's a good reader. But in particular, if you haven't read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, read by Ray Porter, you should do so. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, fantastic book.
Yeah.
Go
Good
read or
hard
listen to it.
sci-fi too. Some actual science in it, which I like. Yeah. On to our next section, which is, of course, what are we reading? Yours is more interesting than mine, so how about you kick us off again?
I'm reading at the moment The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers. It's a collection of short stories written, I think, 1895.
Ooh.
So it is public domain.
Ooh.
I'm about halfway through. I've read the first 5 stories. Really enjoying it. The stories are kind of like old-timey, creepy horror, sort of bit of a Poe, Lovecraft vibe.
Cool.
So there's a bit of like a connecting point between the stories, but they all still stand alone. You do not need to know all the stories to do that. That would be cool for you to read some of these, I reckon.
Nice.
Whether you do the whole collection or just as individual stories.
I'm always looking for shorter things to do between the big novels.
Yeah, I reckon these would probably come in under an hour each.
Right. Okay. Yeah, perfect.
So...
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, I'll check them out.
Yeah, you should do. I haven't read them all yet, so I can't tell you how the rest of the stories turn out.
They might drop off really badly in the second half of the collection.
They might, but the first 5 that I've read so far, all solid.
Right. Yep. Great. Excellent. I'll check that out.
Cool. What are you reading?
The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers. Excellent. Oh, I'm just reading more Pratchett. Still Pratchett, forever Pratchett. I'm on book 14 of 40-something now. So...
Are you planning to break up the Pratchett with anything, or just go power straight through the whole?
I'm going to power through
whole
every Pratchett ever
all
written.
50 of them. I think.
Yeah.
Can't remember how many exactly, but
and then all the others as well, all the other collections. I'm going to read all the Pratchett, start to finish. Oh, my brain. Anyway, all right. Speaking of Pratchett, favourite writers. This is good. This is wonderful. And I've read a little bit of your entry. And I'm looking forward to it because I quite like this writer as well. So go ahead. Eh?
So one of my favourite writers that I'll talk about this week is R.F. Kuang, Rebecca F. Kuang. She came up this week because I saw that her latest book, her 6th novel, is going to be released later this year.
She's still in university or something, right?
Well, she's 28.
Good
She's already done masters, I think. She's just like an academic. That's her thing. She's doing a doctorate now in like Eastern languages or something. Incredibly smart person, and she's written 6 novels at the age of 28 as well as getting a doctorate. So...
Like, I love knowing that there's people that smart out there, but it also really annoys me that I'm not one of them.
Like, at age 28, I was sitting at home scratching my nuts. I don't know what I was doing, but it was not writing my 6th novel and getting a doctorate. Like,
I had just started seriously acting at 28. I've been doing it for like a couple of years.
Wow. I'm blown away by people that can achieve that output at such a young age.
The discipline. Oh, my word. I couldn't sit through a whole TV show at that age.
No way.
You know? Anyway.
But her latest novel, I'm not sure of the pronunciation. I looked it up, got multiple responses, but I think it is catarbasis. But the word means a descent into the underworld. Which sounds intriguing.
Yeah, it does.
And I'm really looking forward to reading this book when it comes out.
Is this a standalone or part of a series?
Standalone.
Right. Okay.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
My introduction to Kuang was the Poppy War trilogy. Her first novel was the first in the series. I read the first 2 when they'd already been released, and then I had to wait very patiently for the 3rd one to come out. When I started the series, I came in pretty skeptical. I'm like, fantasy series starts out with like a poor, underprivileged kid who then, is going to turn out to become the hero. It's a well-worn trope, right?
Absolutely. Where's the magic sword? It's got to be around here somewhere, right?
Yep. Yeah. So I went into it very skeptical, but quickly my mind was changed. It's not that. It's a very good trilogy. Absolutely recommend it to
Yeah,
any
yeah.
fantasy fan at all. Fantastic. Yeah.
Very sort of centered in Anglo-Chinese history, particularly during the Opium Wars, but not specifically centered around that, but definitely in that time, but like a fantasy version thereof, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I like them a lot.
Very cool. And then she followed up that trilogy with Babel. And that is one of my favourite books.
Yeah. It's brilliant.
If you have an interest in languages and you like a bit of magic, go read it. It's fantastic, that book, Babel. Loved it. So, yeah, really looking forward to what she comes up with for this next book. The fact that you can be studying your doctorate and then go, I need a break from my study. I'll just whip out a novel.
Yeah. So the hell with you, man. Oh, my God. Yeah. But also, 3 cheers. But also, the hell with you. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing writer. And the fact that she's done it also young and while trying to do everything she's doing at the same time, blows my mind. Go read R.F. Kuang.
Cool. Very cool. For mine, everybody knows that I love sci-fi. If you know me, you know I love sci-fi. I was also a huge fantasy reader when I was younger, but I sort of grew out of that a little bit. I think, like yourself, I just read too many stories where the poor kid found a magic sword and became the savior of the universe.
Yep.
Again? All right. What color's the blade this time? It was just, same. But yeah, so my taste sort of shifted over the years towards science fiction, in particular hard science fiction like Isaac Asimov, where it's actually based in science, more science than fiction, but well written, yeah. Anyway, my tastes did not ever shift so much that I ever stopped loving my first favorite author in the world, Douglas Adams. All hail. Yep. The first audiobooks at all that I remember hearing were the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy BBC radio series, which I listened to every single day growing up. That is literally true. Every day I listened to those radio plays, and I read the books just constantly. I'd finish the series and go back to the start and start reading them again. I can still quote the beginnings of the book. I used to have a little party trick where I would hand someone the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and say, pick a page, and I will tell you what's on it. I'll tell you what's happening. That's how much I read that book. I just absolutely loved it. I read also his other creations, Dirk Gently.
Yep.
Which, there's only 2 of them, but they were just absolutely fantastic. Absolutely loved them. Please do not judge them based on the awful Netflix show. It was an absolute travesty. I will bleep that word, but I needed to say it because it was awful, because everyone involved should be rounded up and shot. It was that bad. Too much, you think? I don't think so, because they completely ruined it. If I had enough money to buy an actual franchise and record more recent audiobooks, it would be a real toss-up whether I would start with The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy or Dirk Gently, but it would definitely be Douglas Adams. Definitely. As much as I love Terry Pratchett, Douglas first, absolutely. He was massively respected back in the 70s. He was one of the few writers to actually write for Monty Python, other than the 6 members of the troupe. And he was also a script editor for Doctor Who back in the day and wrote 3 storylines for that show. He was hilarious and poignant and just a completely brilliant writer. I miss him so much. He died far, far, far too early. He was also the man who introduced me to the perfection that is J.S. Bach, who is just the greatest composer in human history as far as I'm concerned. He was an inspiration in another way as well, in that he was constantly late in turning in his work to publishers. A famous quote from him was, "I love deadlines. I love the whooshing noise they make as they go by." There is a reason, there are many reasons that I have a tattoo of the Hitchhiker's Guide on my right forearm. Douglas Adams is as near to being a perfect writer as I think ever existed. I know I'm probably pushing for time here. I think I've gone on for about 15 minutes. But I wanted to finish with some of my favourite Douglas Adams quotes, of which there are hundreds. I will limit myself to 5. At number 1, let's think the unthinkable. Let's do the undoable. Let us prepare to grapple with the ineffable itself and see if we may not F it after all. I like that. Very good. Second, it is a mistake to think you can solve any major problems just with potatoes. I think there's something in that for all of us. Number 3, Beethoven tells you what it's like to be Beethoven, and Mozart tells you what it's like to be human. Bach tells you what it's like to be the universe. Oh, I love Bach so much, so much. The major problem, quote number 4, it's about politics. The major problem, or one of the major problems, for there are several, one of the many major problems with governing people is that of whom you get to do it, or rather of who manages to get people to let them do it to them. To summarise, it is a well-known fact that those people who most want to rule people are, ipso facto, those least suited to do it. To summarise the summary, anyone who is capable of getting themselves made president should on no account be allowed to do the job. That's great. I like that a lot. If you know Zaphod Beeblebrox from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, you know exactly what he was talking about. Yeah. Now, and the last one, the 5th quote, is just so brilliant. There is a theory which states that if ever anyone discovers exactly what the universe is for and why it is here, it will instantly disappear and be replaced by something even more bizarre and inexplicable. There is another theory which states that this has already happened. I love Douglas Adams.
Nice. Yeah, he's definitely one of my favourites as well.
Yeah.
I do enjoy a bit of Douglas.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. I'm trying very hard not to quote the start of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I can do like the first 3 pages.
We believe you. You don't have to prove it. It's fine.
Okay. No, we should move on to the next section, which is coming up. What's coming up on the channel? At the time of release of this podcast, which we're recording a couple of weeks ago from your perspective, Patreon and YouTube members have just had the complete release of the first Conan novel and the first 4 chapters of Around the World in 80 Days, because the chapters are pretty short, so I'm releasing them 2 at a time. The free YouTube audience has just had the complete Dracula released. Oh, that was a big project, a long book. I really hope the listeners like it. Almost a year went into the making of that. We burned out our editor, Maciej. He can barely even speak anymore. He's just dribbling in a corner, longing for freedom and to see some daylight, because we had him locked in a cell underground while he edited. It was our biggest cast ever and our most expensive production by far. Like, it wasn't even close to anything else. There won't be anything like that for a good long time.
Yeah, I guess the difference in doing a single narrator book versus a full cast, the difference in the amount of production required behind the scenes is just exponential. Completely different. So for now, I think it's back to basics for a bit.
Absolutely, yeah. Tim is reading Around the World in 80 Days, of course, and we sort of edited that together. But after that, it's pretty much back to me reading and editing for the foreseeable future, like the old days. Coming up for the free audiences is our 3rd Sherlock Holmes story, A Scandal in Bohemia, just a short 3-parter. And then on to some classic sword and sorcery with Conan, the People of the Black Circle.
Where are you from?
Shut up. That's my Schwarzenegger, as well you know. There's also weekly behind-the-scenes exclusive content for patrons and YouTube members who might be interested in how the sausage is made, so to speak. But we did have, this week we have a whole new thing. We did put out a request in the first episode for some audience questions. And we've got a few. If you want to maybe ask the question part, I'll do the answer.
Okay, so we have Real Hey Girl and Na Actune. I apologise if that is not how you want your name said. But they pretty much had the same question, which is how come the mic doesn't pick up your breathing? The audio is quite crisp. How do you get such crystal clear sound on recordings? Is it something about the compressor and equalizer or other settings?
Well, some of these questions should be going to Mache, of course, the editor, because he's far more technically knowledgeable than I am.
We'll have to get him in one
Absolutely.
day.
Answer some questions maybe. If you have hardcore technical questions, send them in and I'll see if Mache wants to record some answers for you.
Add a segment, Match's Technical Corner.
Mache's Technical Corner will momentarily let him out of the dungeon into the sunlight to record something and then put him back down in the pit.
Maybe
Get back to work.
think of a catchier name, but
What
as
do
you
you
know,
mean?
we're not good.
Mache's Technical Corner. It's a very catchy name.
We're not great at names.
No,
so.
we're not. Okay. From my perspective, though, a lot of it is just technique. My father was a music teacher / amateur rock god, so I grew up playing with microphones and I'm quite used to how airflow affects them and directing your voice and all of that sort of stuff. I also have some quite good tech around me, although you may be surprised at how cheap my microphone is. I should maybe do a video sometime on recording technique and see if I can help out any budding voice actors or singers out there, because the technique is the same, whether you're singing or speaking. Yeah.
Cool. Tony, FKNB3896, had a question on the video last month regarding YouTube versus Patreon. Wait, are you doing an accent? How does your voice sound so different here versus reading a book?
I'm not sure. I didn't think I was putting on a voice or anything, but yeah, I'm not sure. My narration voice is pretty much my own voice. It's just sort of cleaned up a bit. I guess I try to submerge my natural accent a bit when I'm recording, because the Australian accent can be pretty thick, and I try to have a nice neutral international accent for the most part, so that people can hear me quite easily and they're not just waiting for me to chuck a shrimp on the barbie.
Yeah, can you
Or
stop talking
Crocodile.
like that, please?
Crocodile the Dundee. Oh, my God, let's have a footy and a Foster's. Maybe that's what you're hearing. I'm not sure. Yeah.
South Australia doesn't have as thick an Australian accent as sort of the east coast of Australia.
Yeah.
I've been asked the same thing since we've been in New Zealand. When people found out I'm from Australia, they go, "Oh, I thought you were British."
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we don't have that thick ochre.
Yeah, hey, Dad. G'day, mate.
Yeah.
I'm from Australia. Didgeridoo my billabong.
Australia.
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 Yeah.
Okay, so Tom Anno asked, what's with the background noise? Totally defeats the purpose of the reader's voice.
Again, we're down to philosophy here. I get it. Some folks don't like the immersive soundscaping. That's why I put up versions with and without the sound effects and music. But honestly, the soundscaping it's my artistic choice. It's what I love, you know. As I said in the description of the channel, it's kind of why I do this. I grew up listening to, as I said before, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which was a full-on BBC radio play with all the sound effects and music, and the sound effects set up the scenes and everything. And as I grew up, most audiobooks didn't have that, and the ones that did were generally dramatizations. They would cut down like what should be a 30-hour book into a 1-hour radio play, and that's all they were interested in doing immersive soundscapes for. They didn't do it for unabridged audiobooks, so I started doing it myself, and that's all. That's what it is. This is what I love, so that's what I make. If you don't like it, that's absolutely fine. Listen to the no SFX version, or listen to all the people, like Ray Porter, or Simon Vance, or the many, many other people who record audiobooks without sound effects. I could go on, but I'll cut myself short. Audiobooks are a broad church, and there's a lot of different styles. This one is mine. So, thanks to all the people who sent in questions. If you have more, send them in a comment below or whatever. I'm happy to answer them, whether they're about technical stuff, and I will try and see if Mache wants to answer any of that sort of thing. or just about working in the entertainment industry, or what it's like being Australian, or a grown-up, or where babies come from, or anything else. Just not political, please. I try not to answer that. And if you don't want me to go on a 3-hour rant, don't ask me about AI. That's the one thing I would say. You can send in, anything you want. Relationship advice, whatever. You can ask whatever you want. I just can't guarantee that my answers will be useful.
About audiobooks.
Okay, so now on to a little bit of a serious thing for, is it our last section or our penultimate section?
It's our last section.
Oh, it's the last bit. Featuring the YouTube readers. I was going to feature Tim Williams, who starred in 1984 as O'Brien and has been in virtually every audiobook I've made since then, and is the main narrator of our current book, Around the World in 80 Days, of course. I was going to have him record a little something like Ray Porter did, but unfortunately his mother has just passed beyond the veil, so he is travelling back to the UK where he is from, where his family is, to deal with that. I would just very briefly like to send my commiserations and love to Tim and his family, and we'll hear from him in the coming episodes, I'm sure. He really is like a great guy and a great actor, and I'm proud to have him on board. Yeah. So, as a last-minute stopgap of YouTube readers to feature, rather than a single reader, I'm offering a collection of old-time radio shows on a channel called The Best Old-Time Radio Shows, which has many classic collections from the golden age of American radio drama back in like the 50s, post-war stuff, really. There's some awesome collections on there from Escape and The Twilight Zone and X-111, if you love the old radio sci-fi. That's how it's said.
I know, I've heard you listening to it. It's horrible.
Oh, no, I love it. It's so good. And there's like The Adventures of Philip Marlowe and the Falcon, if you like old, incredibly sexist, racist detective stuff, because it's all just terrible. Or there's plenty of old comedies and dramas and all sorts of genres for folks who like these old things. It is all American stuff, unfortunately. There's nothing from the old BBC archives. They're on different channels. But there's still plenty of good stuff up there to enjoy. I'll put a link in the description of this episode. If you have a favorite YouTube audiobook channel which is not read by a AI, send in. I'll bleep that one as well.
Yeah, and which is copyright compliant.
True. None of that stolen stuff. I don't swing with that. Please send in your suggestions, because not only would we like to have stuff to feature on the podcast, but I'd like to check them out myself. I listen to audiobooks all the time. I love them, and I love hearing new talent as well. So that's it for this second episode. Thanks everyone for your support. It really means a lot to me. We'll be back with more next month. Feel free to send in your favorites, your comments, complaints, and questions, and we'll endeavor to get to them all. All the best from me and mine to you and yours. We'll see you next time.